Welcome to a regular meeting of the Brevard County Commission. We have a quorum, so I'll call this meeting to order. Can we please stand for the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Commissioners, we have some minutes to approve. Can I have a motion?
So moved, Lober.
Motion by Commissioner Lober. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zonka. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We have one resolution, and this is for the Astronaut War Eagles Bowling Club. If you guys would come forward. No, she couldn't make it. Yeah.
All that metal.
Yeah.
There's lots of bling out there.
We're thankful. Congratulations, guys. I'm going to read this so everybody can know what you accomplished. It's a pretty big deal, and we're pretty proud of you up in North Brevard, and the whole county is as well. Whereas the War Eagles Bowling Club Astronaut High School Boys Bowling Team won the Florida High School Athletic Association State Championship and traveled to Ohio to compete in the 2021 U.S. High School National Bowling Championship, which featured singles and team events. The team consists of Zachary Beckman, Jaden Bagheera, David Blake, Lucas Berlin, Will Gibson, Logan Harvey, Jonathan Loudermilk, and Adam Thomas. And whereas the Astronaut War Eagle Bowling Club is coached by head coach Dexter Dees, and assistant coach Tyler Brewer, and assistant coach David Lichtenberg. And whereas on June 20th, 2021, the team placed third in the nation. And team member Logan Harvey won the 2021 National Championship for boys singles. Which one's Logan? All right, congratulations. The team is thankful for all the support from Astronaut High School student body, the Titusville community, and Astronaut High School administration, faculty, and staff. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners does hereby recognize and congratulate the Astronaut High School War Eagles Bowling Club, Florida High School Athletic Association state champions, and the 2021 U.S. National High School Bowling Championship Final Four. Done in order, and a motion to approve this item.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Would any of you guys like to say anything? They're pointing to you.
Sure, I guess.
So stand right here. Microphone's right there.
Do I need to turn around? I'll just put this up here so you guys can see that. Where's, oh, it's over there. Okay. I just want to thank everyone that helped us get to where we were able to be today, to win a national championship on my own, but then also be able to participate with my team and be top 3 in the whole nation, as well as state champs. It's a pretty great honor, and we had a great group of guys, but also we had a big supporting team behind us back at and home in Titusville and everywhere that allowed us to get to nationals and do what we did and show off our name and our school and be a national champ and top 3. It's pretty cool, and to have the opportunity that we got as a young team that we were, it was pretty great. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that got us where we were and helped us break our dreams, not break, overachieve what we wanted to do. So thank you to everyone. It's awesome.
Madam Chair?
Oh, please. Commissioner Weber, please.
I just want to let you know, I like this resolution, because when I was a kid in high school, I was, not only did I make a turkey once, but one time I actually bowled a strike in the adjacent lane.
Oh.
And there were folks that were playing there.
Oh, so you
And we
gave it a
were
shot.
trying at the time to get the surveillance videos to submit it to America's Funniest or one of those. I never got them.
Well, that's unfortunate.
But congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I would like to ask you, what was your average in your final game?
So the final game I bowled, I think it was a 212, but overall for the whole tournament, I bowled over like 11 games, I think, and I probably averaged around 220, 230. I don't remember the exact number, but it's close to that.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
All of you guys are impressive. Congratulations.
Congratulations. We have a certificate for you, and Ms. Carroll's going to hand them out to you. And do we have a?
It's a lot of bling.
Almost need sunglasses. I'm not sure I ever bowled a 200. I used to bowl a lot when I was in high school.
I kind of had moments where I did and sometimes where I didn't. It just depended. Remember when I had the turkey, though, I thought that's as good as life gets. It's 3 strikes in a row. I've never done better than that, though.
Yeah, I've never done that.
Start wearing down the stairs. I couldn't see.
Stacking up over there.
Loretta's here, but we're late. Can't do it now. Okay. I know, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. We are moving into consent agenda. Commissioners, do you have any items you'd like to have polled? I do have cards for F9, F12, and F13.
I'll move to approve it less 9, 12, and 13.
Okay, a motion to approve consent besides F9 and F9, 12, and 13. I have a motion to have a second. Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, passes 5-0. Item F9.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Matthew Wallace, the Director of Public Safety for Brevard County. And F9 is the auto aid agreement with Patrick Space Force Base, which is hard to say, as I used to be the Air Force guy there, and Brevard County for emergency services for automatic aid to include all unincorporated areas of South Cocoa Beach. This auto aid will be a trade for services in kind. There is no direct monetary obligation in this auto aid agreement. Patrick Space Force Base will automatically provide fire service to unincorporated areas of South Cocoa Beach. Brevard County will then in turn provide training to Patrick Space Force Base personnel for incident commander, which will save them sending their folks temporary duty to Texas for up to 2 weeks at a time and several dollars on their side. As we analyze the dollars that this services in kind would be, it's a great trade for Brevard County to provide this service to unincorporated South Cocoa Beach. The agreement is 5-year terms with auto renewals not to exceed 20 years. The driving force of this agreement is really the low call volume that this area has. Patrick agreed to this agreement because they average about 24 fire calls per year, with less than one of them being an actual fire call. So because of that low volume, Patrick was willing to get into this agreement with us. This agreement also solves a decade-old problem. As we went back and looked at most homes in this area were built between 1953 and 1965. Those homes were more than 5 miles away from their servicing fire department. As such, the Insurance Service Organization, or ISO, declared their ISO rating at a 10, which is the worst, 1 being the best. If your residence is more than 5 miles away from a fire station, you get the automatic rating of 10. With this auto aid agreement, the Patrick Space Force Fire Station will be within 5 miles now of every resident in unincorporated South Brevard, or South Cocoa Beach. So that will improve that component of the ISO rating automatically if the commission does approve this auto aid agreement. There is no serviceable difference between this auto aid agreement with Patrick Space Force Base or any other fire service provider that we had been in contact with or in discussions with. The engine manning, in fact, providing this agreement would meet or exceed all those other service providers that we have in the county that we currently have auto aids with. Our teams spent the last 8 weeks going over every detail of this auto aid agreement. Our county attorney's office, county risk office, Patrick's Judge Advocate General, which is their law team. We all reviewed this in excruciating detail, and we all recommend that it is at least legally sufficient, and I'll recommend to the commission, the board, for approval. It is note that there is no change in emergency medical service for these areas. Our BCFR ambulances will continue to serve this area just like they do today. I'd also, in closing here, I'd like to push a big thank you to Patrick Space Force Base, their fire teams, their leadership, for stepping out and helping us solve this big issue that we've had for a long, long time. This agreement will set a standard of great partnerships with our federal partners that we'll have, and we really look forward to working with them, and I know they're excited about getting into this agreement with us. So, ma'am, pending any questions from the commission or the board, we're here for you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Lober, I have one card. Would you rather speak before or after the card?
Let me go before, if I may.
Okay.
So just a couple things. I want to correct one thing that Colonel Wallace had stated, and then amend one other thing, and then put out a couple of other items. So that the correction is, this is not a decade-long problem. This is a multi-decade-long problem. In fact, this has been an issue, as I understand it, since prior to when man first set foot on the moon. So it's been an issue for longer than quite a few folks that are out in the audience have been alive. This is the only option that I have seen that has a high likelihood or almost a certainty of resolving that issue that Colonel Wallace identified as far as being a fire station that's obligated to respond within 5 miles of driving distance. As Colonel Wallace mentioned, in terms of serviceable differences between this and other auto aid agreements that we have throughout the county, he mentioned that it meets or exceeds every other one. What I'll tell you is the only other alternative that anyone has proposed to me on this, as far as an auto aid agreement with an adjacent municipality, I was just informed by one of the district chiefs today that they have 2-man engines, whereas Patrick has 3- or 4-man engines. So we would have a difference of personnel of 50 to 100% greater than the next nearest alternative, which is, in all candor, just financially prohibitive, and I would go as far as to say financially irresponsible for us to consider, especially when we have something that is essentially free to us, that involves no real risk whatsoever, that has no downside whatsoever. Do I claim that this is going to resolve every problem whatsoever with respect to Snug Harbor? No. But to the extent that this resolves problems at no cost, why not do it? If there's more that needs to be done after this, we can certainly evaluate this in the future in terms of determining whether there are other changes that need to take place. But the way that it's phrased, it's simply a no-brainer. I do want to thank Chief Voltaire, Chief Schulmeyer, and Colonel Wallace on this item. I think this was a tremendous effort that, frankly, I didn't expect to necessarily pan out at the end of the day. There were some hiccups along the road, but it looks like we're finally there.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to go ahead and call Mr. Steve Horn.
How y'all doing? So I live in Snug Harbor. I live at 11 West Point Drive. And before I handed
Just say your name real quick for me.
Steve Horn.
Thank you.
I live at 11 West Point Drive in Cocoa Beach. I'm part of the Snug Harbor neighborhood. And before I handed my card in, I actually wanted to hear what the deal was going to be. So first of all, I'd like to thank you, Colonel Wallace. Thank you, Mr. Lober, for making this happen. I had my doubts about it. Working with the Space Force Base, I didn't think that the Space Force Base would actually go out into the community and stuff like that and do something like that. So that's great. One thing I'd like to add too is that I personally went out on the Space Force Base just to see the distances and stuff. And the furthest house in the Snug Harbor area is 4.9 miles. So I verified that, and I think I saw an email from you on that as well. So thank you very much. I know that we still have, it's the first step with the ISO ratings and everything. I know that 50% of your ISO rating is based on the fire department, and it looks like the fire department at Patrick Space Force Base is just phenomenal. But there's other things like with the water pressure, the hydrants and everything, and I think we have some issues there, and I hope that that's something we can explore in the future as we move forward to get the ISO rating down or up a better level. So that's all I really had to say tonight, so thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair, just very, very briefly.
Yes, sir.
Now, just on that front, since you mentioned the water delivery, I actually have been in communication with Colonel Wallace about that specific issue as recently as less than a week ago. I know that Cocoa, the city of Cocoa, maintains the water supply out there, and one of the items that we were talking about was potentially looking at that area where there's a greater spacing between the houses and the hydrants than what would potentially be ideal. Not to say it's the worst by any means in the county. I don't think it falls to that level, but it certainly it's an area where there stands to be some improvement. So we are looking at that. I think the important thing is taking this in a logical, chronological fashion where we go through each of the steps, see what the impact is to the ISO, and then take additional steps as necessary to address it until we're in a better spot.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at, to explore those kind of things as we
Yes,
go in
sir.
the future. Because you're supposed to have fire hydrants within 800 feet of each other, and there's areas where it is not 800 feet.
Yeah, my understanding, and I could defer to Chief Schulmeyer on this, but in terms of the standard that I had previously heard, and I will afterward defer to him, the 1,000-foot marker was something of a magical number. I believe that the report that I got indicated there was one house that exceeded 1,000 feet, and it was beyond it by maybe 4 feet or 6 feet, some trivial amount in all of Snug Harbor. And even of those that exceed 1,000 feet, depending on the capacity, or I should say the length and diameter of the hose in the responding engines, there were exemptions or exceptions that allowed them still to fall within a decent ISO rating. And I understand from staff that the responding trucks would meet those additional exemptions or exclusions. So I'll defer to Chief Schulmeyer to explain it a little more eloquently than that, but my understanding is we may not be in the worst possible shape, but that doesn't mean that we're satisfied with leaving it as is.
Yeah, so there's a couple things with ISO. We've been kind of confusing ISO and NFPA requirements. The two are separate, and they're the same but different, if that makes sense. So with ISO, it is 1,000 feet or less from a hydrant, or 5 miles or less from a fire station. And ISO also mentions credible water sources. The definition of credible water source according to ISO is 250 gallons a minute for 2 hours. So that's the only requirement that ISO has. You were referring to hydrants, 800-foot spacing on hydrants. That's an NFPA requirement for new neighborhoods, which when that neighborhood was built doesn't apply.
Okay, all right. And I think we've got the water pressure there, because I think it's about 500 plus.
Yeah, I think
So all those hydrants are orange top hydrants.
Yes, correct.
And so when you look at the NFPA color coding of hydrants, you have a red top hydrant, which is 0 to 499 gallons per minute. Orange top is 500 to 999. So
Green and then blue, yeah.
Yeah, just in the interest of time, I'm thinking after we get this resolved as far as this particular item, once this is put in place, if you want to get back in touch either with Chief Schulmeyer, Colonel Wallace, or my office, I can set a sit-down up with all three of us to kind of evaluate where things are at that point and discuss some of the next step forward to see if it's something that perhaps that you support, or if you have other ideas to the contrary or in addition.
That would be greatly appreciated, believe me.
Will do.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Commissioner Zonka?
Okay, I just have a question. Where, was this you that came up with this idea, given your relationship with the base?
Ma'am, I can't take all the credit. Chief Schulmeyer, when we were looking for options, he looked at me and said, "Isn't there a fire department on Patrick?" And I said, "Yes." And he's like, "Weren't you in charge of that at one time?" I said, "Yes." It's like, "Why can't we get in this agreement?" I said, "I have no idea why not." So Chief put it in my head, and then we spearheaded, yes, ma'am, with
So this
some
is
of the
one
great
of those
relationships.
times we really appreciate your relationship with the base, and
Yes, ma'am.
a lot of the public probably doesn't know that. So thank you for your hard work. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we typically have a ceremonial, was it the base that requested a ceremony signing?
Yes, ma'am. In military tradition, getting partnerships with the local community is a big deal, because the wing commander, part of his mission is to reach out to the community to make sure that they're safe as well. So when these things happen, it's a big thing for them, and they want to celebrate the fact that they're reaching out and being part of Brevard County. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I was just curious, because it's not something typically we do, but And if the board's fine with it, I don't have a problem with District 2 doing it, but typically, I think we would defer to the chair, because she's the signer of all documents. Does that?
Yes, ma'am. Whatever the board directs, yes, ma'am.
If you're, obviously, it's,
Yeah, I'm fine.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Commissioner
whatever
Lover?
y'all, I was gonna say, whatever y'all want to do. I mean, the request involved me. If you want to go instead tomorrow, by all means, it keeps me out of the heat.
Oh, it's your district. I'm cool, yeah.
Whatever y'all want to do.
Okay, so Commissioner, I guess you're ready to make a motion?
So I'll move to approve it.
Motion by Commissioner Zonka, second by, okay. I know. But he made a
Motion.
motion. Commissioner Zonka made the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item F12. I do have cards on this. County Manager, do you want to introduce it, or you want me to go ahead and have the cards come up?
I think it's self-explanatory, so I could give a brief introduction. This is an administrative leave policy, requires the board approval because it's a benefit that would be provided. It would be provided to those employees that have obtained vaccination for COVID-19, and it would entitle them to up to 10 days administrative leave if, as a vaccinated employee, they come down with COVID and are symptomatic and therefore required under the CDC guidelines to stay away from work for a 10-day period. This was provided as a way for the board to consider providing an incentive through the end of the year for employees to voluntarily obtain vaccination and recognize those that have done so by providing that benefit if they personally, this does not cover anyone other than the vaccinated employee themselves. That's different than federal legislation that was put into place last year. That legislation is no longer in effect today.
So, County Manager, I'm going to call them up. I think Commissioner Zonka, you have light on, but just to clarify, sir, as of right now, if someone is unavailable to come to work and they're ill, they're using their sick time right now, correct, sir?
Right, they can use any of their available leave time. Most likely it will be sick leave.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I have Mr. Nathan Slusher. And Miss Diana Gaines, you'll be next, ma'am.
For the record, Nathan Slusher at 860 Allendale Street in Titusville. Ladies and gentlemen, anytime we take people's money from their paycheck and we give it to a specific group of people just based on their beliefs, we have a massive principle problem. Whether we agree with them or not is irrelevant to the fact that you cannot pass out money just based on how people believe. It's just not ethically correct. That's all I've got to say today.
Thank you, sir. Miss Diana Gaines?
Good evening. It's Diana Haynes, and I'm from Melbourne.
I'm sorry, I should probably.
That's okay. I'm kind of appalled at the measure you're putting forth here, and to say that is an understatement. You're elected public officials. You're public servants. You are paid by us, we the people, who live in this county. How dare you incentivize one American worker against another, especially over a highly volatile and controversial vaccine? Vaccines that are now proven to be ineffective, that have been proven to cause irreparable damage and permanent harm to one's body. Companies producing these non-FDA approved vaccines have countless lawsuits against them for irreparable damages and deaths their products have caused to the unsuspecting American public. I can attest to this firsthand because I'm one of their victims, whose life and body was irreparably damaged by one such vaccine company. So everyone knows, any of these COVID vaccines damages you, you will not be able to sue the manufacturer like I did. You will never see compensation for your damaged health. But if cities, counties, and private employers demand you get these vaccines as a condition of your livelihood, then maybe we can sue you and them. I need to let you know that we are still the United States of America. We are still the land of the free. And let me remind you that we still hold true in the words that were written by far greater men, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever, in any form of the government, becomes destructive of these ends, the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form as we seem to be most effective for our health and our safety and happiness. You're treading on dangerous ground. Let me give you a little history lesson. Decades ago, they put a star on people who were different. Decades ago, they led people to the gas chambers who were different. So, ladies and gentlemen, think about this resolution, because if you do pass this consent item, it just might be time to abolish you all. Thank you.
Commissioner Lober?
Just a few thoughts. First, as someone who was raised Jewish, who has two parents who are Jewish, whose grandfather was a first-generation American Jew who fought in the U.S. Army against the Germans in Germany in World War II and was involved in liberating concentration camp, comparing this to the Holocaust, I find tremendously offensive. You have every right to do so, just as anyone has every right to make a stupid comment with which I tremendously disagree. To suggest that this is in any way akin to that just shows that there is a complete detachment in terms of your perception and reality. Mr. Abate, are we implementing this policy in any way based on anyone's beliefs, as was suggested by the first speaker?
No.
Or is this something that you're suggesting implementing based on steps taken to reduce risk and ensure that they remain healthy?
That's correct.
As a purely voluntary process?
Absolutely.
Are we forcing anyone to do anything whatsoever? Excuse me, sir?
I got it, Commissioner Lober. We don't speak out, all right?
No, you wouldn't.
This is simple to me. If you want to come in my house and I say you take off your shoes, you take off your shoes. You don't want to do it, don't come in my house. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion. I would like to make a couple comments, if you guys wouldn't mind. I think what we have going on is people are a little fearful of the unknown, and I get it. Just a testimony, though, this week, we have a church facility, and we have a large daycare and school, and we had 8 people get COVID within 2 days, and they're pretty sick. It's painful. You know, they're on day 8 and 9, and none of them were vaccinated. So I'm just going to tell you, whether you believe it or not, but if you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. Don't put something in you're not comfortable with. I will fight for your right to have that decision. But I think the correct word here to throw out is consider it. Spend some time, think about it, talk to your doctor, and then you make the choice. And if you're comfortable with it, do it. If you're not, then don't. But you can't argue my testimony, you can argue with data, but I've lived through it and I've seen it, and I've seen there is some results with it, and it's one mean virus. But again, I'll leave that up to you. It's your own choice. On this, I don't think it's necessarily what's being portrayed, but I have more concerns on trying to handle the financial side of this right now. I'm not going to vote in support of it, but not that I don't think that if people would go ahead and think through it and get a vaccine, that it's not a good thing. I've seen the bad side of COVID, and if you've seen it enough, or you have family members, you've watched them be sick enough where you've almost lost a couple and you have lost a couple, it kind of makes you rethink it a bit. So I want to throw that out as a little bit of a balance on this. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a tough one for me because I understand the purpose behind it, and I don't necessarily disagree with the purpose. However, I do have a problem, an issue, because I know that there are people that have beliefs that wouldn't let them take this, and I also know that there are people that are very, very strongly opposed to this. And from my perspective, it's setting them up as a kind of a separate class of citizens, and I won't support this. Not that I'm saying that it doesn't have some value, but I just can't, because I've been looking at this whole COVID thing now for a year and a half, as has all of you, and self-preservation is probably the instinct that is the strongest among every single one of us. Yeah. Even insects have a sense of self-preservation. And if you don't believe that, you haven't had a fly or an annoying mosquito in your house. Because if you try and kill one of them, they're going to do everything they can to get away from you. Self-preservation is extremely strong. And if after a year and a half of being deluged with the fear of getting this disease and the fear that has been talked about ad nauseum about how bad this thing is, you either believe it or you don't. And I just think that if you haven't grasped the fact that this is very important to you, then your self-preservation hasn't been tweaked. And offering you 80 days or 20 days or a couple $100 or $1,000, I don't think it's going to make a difference. It really isn't. To the people that want it, they've gotten it, or they're going to get it because now they see the light, or they're not going to get it. I don't think either one of these things being proposed tonight would have much effect. We've seen that it hasn't really already. And I got my shot, my wife got her shot, and I think it's a personal choice. And if you want to get it, get it. If you don't want to get it, don't get it. But I'm not big on incentives, so I'm not going to support this.
Commissioner Zonka.
Yeah, my take's a little different, even though I'm in agreement with you, Commissioner Smith. And I'm not saying that this is not salvageable, because I think that there's probably a way that we could accommodate any employee who's unfortunate enough to get COVID. I know people that can't get the vaccine because they're immunocompromised. I know people that are just waiting another approximately 1 to 2 months for FDA approval. So I work with people who are genuinely scared. Should they be? Maybe, maybe not. I myself was vaccinated at the first instant that I was able to, because I believe I have a responsibility to my community and my patients. However, I don't like any type of incentives. For me, I think sick leave serves a purpose in any employment agreement, and that's sort of how I looked at this, because I tried to peel the politics away from it. I think sick leave is sick leave, whether you get COVID or whether you get the flu or whether you get bronchitis or otherwise. And I think that every employee should have to use their sick leave. It's unfortunate if you get COVID, but then the responsibility is on you to make sure that you didn't do what you could to prevent it. Not, oh, you'll be covered if you get the vaccine, because we both know that, or we all know up here that that doesn't necessarily determine protection. And I know this policy is meant to, it's so narrow that I don't even know that it would ever even be utilized. So I think it's an unnecessary move on our part. So I won't be supporting it.
Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm tired of the social aspect of things. If you want a social aspect of things, go to church, and I'll support you, whatever church you go to. But the thing speakers are failing to understand, and unfortunately some of the members up here on the board, having a government job is not a right. It's a damn privilege. And you know what? If you don't like it, go somewhere else. You have other opportunities. I cannot tell you how many signs I see outside that says help wanted. And you know what? If you don't want to be a team player, if you want to put constituents at risk, you may not like the science. My guess is you're not a doctor. My guess is you're not a nurse. My guess you didn't do very well in biology class, because when the CDC says 99.97% of people that are in the hospital right now are there without vaccinations, what you fail to understand is that we are self-insured here. So every one of these, and it's not nice to call them morons, but I'm going to call you a moron, that doesn't get the shot and ends up in the hospital is costing about $14,000 in taxpayers. So you want to go for your, I support you, but just stop the whining, stop the complaining, and quit your job. We don't want you here if you are going to put A, taxpayers at risk, and B, members of the public at risk. So yeah, you can read any document you want, but we're the one that has to come back to you guys and say, you know what, we need a tax increase. Because here's what there are more than 70,000 hours right now of government employees that have been out on sick leave. That means time and a half or double time, or God forbid these damn unions, triple time that we're having to pick up. So I'm sorry to get impassioned on this darn stuff, but I tell you what, if we stop incentivizing, we shouldn't have to do this. You should care about the people that you serve. You should care about science. This is not a partisan issue. This is a management issue. I'm disappointed it even has to come here. I appreciate everyone's opinion up here, but I can't imagine that an officer in the military gives an order and you have a bunch of enlisted folks that sit up there and question that order. And we're in a paramilitary, we have an organization up here with an individual at the top who sits to my right, is trying to save taxpayer money. And you guys, many of you guys, and I'm sorry to get impassioned on this stuff, but we're going to have to come back to you and say that this is going to 70,000 hours. 70,000, about half of that came from firefighters, by the way, a wonderful union that we have that we're currently involved with, by the way, that has a vaccination rate at 27%. This is absolutely disgusting. This is abhorrent. I strongly support this. In fact, I would go a step further and say if you don't want a vaccine, guess what? Either get the hell out or we're not going to provide you with insurance. But unfortunately, the federal government is not as has put laws in place that preclude that from happening. So I think incentivizing this type of behavior is very good. I will be strongly supporting this. Unfortunately, it sounds like this will be going down.
Okay, so I have a motion, and I'm thinking that's a second. Yes?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Lober.
I'll just point out, I mean, to me, I agree with some of the things that Commissioner Tobias stated, but certainly not all of them by any means. It's interesting because I feel like I kind of fall between the two rocks in this case. I don't know which I'm closer to, quite honestly. But to me, the big differentiator here is it's voluntary. If it weren't voluntary, I wouldn't support it. Even looking at the CARES Act and the D2 allocation or the D2 delegated allocation, I was happy, and the board was happy at the time, to permit a good chunk of that money to be used to incentivize folks that are first responders, both BCFR personnel, be it fire medics, lieutenants, captains, district chiefs, the chief, ocean rescue lifeguards, even those folks that work in organizations with whom we share auto aid agreements, and now that would include Patrick Air Force Base, or soon that would include Patrick Air Force Base, the volunteer firefighters in Merritt Island, elsewhere, Cape Canaveral, to incentivize them to get the vaccine. I'm not going to stick a needle in anyone's arm, but I don't think there's anything wrong with rewarding behavior that reduces risk and keeps people at the workplace. If they don't want to do it, that's fine. Don't do it. But if you're on the fence or you're ambivalent, and this is something which will encourage you to go ahead and do it, I don't see there being any issue with it. Certainly there's nothing remotely illegal about it. I don't think there's anything immoral with it. And for the folks that say they don't want to get it, okay, don't do it. But that's really the differentiator for me. I'm not going to say to folks that have worked here for years that may have a perfectly valid reason for not getting it. I know my wife has a friend who has an autoimmune issue that can't get the shot, and it's unfortunate. And I'm not going to ever give her a hard time because she didn't get it, because she can't get it. Her physicians told her not to get it. Physicians, again, being a category where 96 or 97% of them have gotten vaccinated, MDs and DOs both. That's the differentiator for me when you look at it. And any proposal that comes up here that looks like it's either a wash and cost or close to a wash and cost, or may save us money or may even cost us a little bit, but keeps people in the workplace and keeps people being productive and doing their job, that's voluntary and involves an incentive, for something like this, I'll support it. So, it sounds like we're going down in flames, but I'm still where I'm at with it.
Commissioner Zonka.
See, and again, while I don't agree with everything Commissioner Tobias said, of course, I do agree in the sense that, your employer sets the rules. My own employer sets ours, and I'm happy to abide by them, or I'm happy to look for another job. So I actually agree with you on that. And I think we sort of got a little muddied up on this item and Commissioner Tobias' later item about the cash incentive. So this is just the administrative leave policy from the county manager So I don't want those two items to get convoluted. But again, I don't like this. I wish that it was available to all people. I think COVID is unfortunate, and I think we do what we can to help our employees. But, you know, I'll go with the will of the board, and if the majority of the board is not agreeing with the policy, I'd support it if it included everybody in the administrative policy, vaccinated and unvaccinated. Because I do know people, even health professionals, that are just waiting that extra month or two because they're scared.
There.
Justifiably, maybe not. Maybe they're making a poor decision and they're taking bigger risks, but that's their own personal choice. Like I said, I was one of the first. As soon as I could get that vaccine, I did. I figured that was the best thing I could do to protect my family, my patients, my community, but that was my choice to get it. So as soon as it's FDA approved, we can revisit this if you like, but I'm not comfortable leaving out a group of people that just may be too scared to get it right now.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, Commissioner Zonka. And another thing, too, to do this, you're going to have to ask who has had it and who hasn't. And I don't want people being ashamed one side or the other. It's like you said, people are genuinely either afraid of getting it or they're afraid of the COVID. And that's their own personal decision. Nobody has to be embarrassed about that. It's something that you have to decide on your own. It's scary both ways. I mean, I get it. So you have to do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And Commissioner Smith, I agree with you. At this point, either they're going to do it or they haven't done it. So it's their own personal conviction. So I totally understand, and I think that I'm glad the FDA is going to be doing the consideration of approval. I think that'll change a lot of people at that time if it will, or by then everyone will have had it and will have herd immunity and move along. But this is one mean virus. I want to say that again. If you haven't seen it up close and personal, it's not kind. It's really painful. Commissioner Lober, and then I'm going to go ahead and call the questions.
I have a question. I'm sorry, Mr. Abate, to kind of put you on the spot here. If you don't know, totally understandable. Do you have any idea in terms of how Brevard compares to some of the other counties throughout the state? Are we better or are we worse off with COVID? I mean, do you have any idea whether, what our rates are specific to this county?
No, I believe we have someone from
Frank, I don't know that your mic's on, Frank.
We probably have someone, I believe, from the Department of Health who's here that could answer that question better than I could. I can tell you that I met with some of the leading hospital administrators who expressed their serious concern about Brevard, that in certain aspects, in terms of the doubling rate for the infection, Brevard is the highest in Florida, Brevard County.
Out of 67?
At 39 days, where most other jurisdictions in the area, 50 to 60 days. And I was just given that information late this morning.
I can tell you there's an 8-hour wait to get tested if you show up in the morning. It takes you 8 hours before you're able to get your test from the lines.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good catch.
Nice catch. Thank you. John Scott, Emergency Management Director. I have with me Helen Nedlin from the Department of Health. She's an epidemiologist with them, and so is John Davis. So I will let them step in and give you that and then be available.
So specifically, what information did you ask again?
So I'm just worried, and I guess my real question is how we as a county compare with respect to the situation we're dealing with COVID compared to any of the other counties throughout the state. We've got 67 counties in the state. I just wonder if we're in a good spot, bad spot, whether it really is important for us to do something here that's not currently being done, or whether it's unnecessary at this point.
So I can tell you that all of Florida is in a bad position, per se. If you look at our statistics, I look at cases every day, have done for over a year and a half now, and I can tell you that from about June 21st, we have doubled in numbers every week. The numbers that you're looking at are the numbers that we know. You can always look at a number and with epidemiology, be aware that there's probably 2 to 3 times that untested. So we only know the tested amounts. So just looking at the data that the state of Florida put out on Friday, I can tell you that our cases per 100,000 last week was 575 on average over the week. That's the highest we've ever been at any point in time during this pandemic. High transmission from the CDC is considered 100 per 100,000. So I don't know what you would call 575. Is kind of off the scale, if you ask.
And
you know.
Madam, I just want to make sure, because I thought I heard Mr. Scott mention you're an epidemiologist.
I'm a registered nurse,
Okay.
and I work in epidemiology. I have 10 years of experience in working with vaccines, and then 3 to 4 in epidemiology.
And you work for FDOH now, or?
I work for the Department of Health in Brevard County, and I'm the program manager for epidemiology.
Okay, so it's not that you just stayed in a Holiday Inn Express and feel like you...
No, I
appreciate it.
work with this every day.
Okay, thank you. I believe it, thank you.
Yeah. So when we look at Brevard County, we're at like 575 cases per 100,000. You can look at some of the smaller counties. They seem to be doing much better. Probably the lowest is Glades County, which is at 67 cases per 100,000. If you look at, say, I can look at Brevard, they're at 462. Certainly Baker is at 789. So I think that we're kind of in the top quarter of the counties as far as our cases per 100,000.
And when you say top, you mean worst?
Worst, yes, sorry,
Thank you.
yes.
Can I ask you a quick question? Where do we compare as far as vaccination rates in this county with the others? Are we about the same, or?
Our vaccine rate in Brevard County, if you're looking at those over 12, so those who can actually be vaccinated, we're at 58%.
Okay.
So again, we are actually, I think, probably in the upper areas of those being vaccinated, which is actually concerning in that when we have that level of vaccination, but we're still getting that higher level of cases, it doesn't always, there's that kind of disconnect a little bit there. I don't know why that is. I can't explain that. But, we're not in a great position right now.
How long do you think before this kind of runs its path this time?
I wish I had the answer to that. I think that you can maybe look to India and how long it took them to go from their peak down to maybe what was something that they could actually handle or live with maybe. It took them about a month to a month and a half, depending on what statistics you were looking at.
Commissioner Zonk, I think if I can get your opinion on this, what we need to do is probably get it to where it's more manageable by the hospitals. Is that correct?
What's going on in the hospitals right now is downright scary. And I have to be careful, obviously, because I work for a hospital system, and I don't want to speak out of term, and I don't want to. John Scott, I'm sure, has a plethora of information he can provide, and I've seen some updates, and it's very scary.
Yes, ma'am, it is. All three of our hospital systems, so that's Parish, that's Health First, and Steward, are at their highest levels they've seen during this event. All of them are beyond their licensed bed capacity. So they're all doing, and really a compliment to the tremendous work that our healthcare workers are doing. They continue to find extra space in hospitals, convert rooms to negative pressure so they can accommodate more and more COVID patients. But it is absolutely at a high point. And what's important to talk about too when we talk about this is it's not just COVID patients. It does affect the entire hospital system. So folks fall down, folks still get in car accidents, all that kind of stuff still happens. Commissioner, you has alluded to the idea of the long wait times we're seeing in the ERs. Those also impact our urgent care centers. As those continue to sort of get longer wait times, we see those. And we know our EMS system, our ambulances, are continuing to have to hold longer at the hospitals, which takes more and more ambulances out of service. So, I mean, the hospital system right now and its general functionality is our big concern. And we know that more and more folks getting vaccinated is one of the ways we begin to stabilize this. That answer your question, Commissioner?
Okay. No, sir. Did you?
Let's vote.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The motion does not pass from 3 to 2. Let's have that. Okay.
I would at least propose, or maybe we can toss around the idea of including all employees in that administrative leave policy. If the support's there for it, I'd be happy to support that. Vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my initial take, and I'll defer to Mr. Abate, if he thinks this is something that, from a financial standpoint, is wise, I'll support it. But my initial take, if he's ambivalent, is to oppose it simply because the purpose, as I understand it, in this was to incentivize folks to get vaccinated. If we're making it available to everyone, I think it ceases to achieve that objective. That said, I don't know what the fiscal impact of approving this with a wider pool would be. The hope was that we would have more people at work, which would offset the cost of making that other option available to them. I just don't see, thinking about this, how it could work out to the county's advantage and to the taxpayers' advantage by approving it with a wider pool of folks that would be covered. But Mr. Abate, I mean, do you think it's something that would, from a fiscal standpoint, or is that something that's unknowable? Do you think it would help us out in any way?
As Commissioner Tobias pointed out, we had very significant utilization of COVID-related leave this past year. It was in the area of administrative leave was over 70,000 hours. So if you look at the average county salary, I will tell you that it would have a significant impact unless you provided a funding source. If a board member chose to provide that funding source with ARPA dollars, which I believe you could do, that would be a way to cover it. But that's what you need to do. You're right. This policy was brought forward as a way to incentivize people for vaccinations because of the reasons you've heard this evening. But we're happy to follow the board's direction on how you'd like to proceed at this point.
Thanks.
Commissioner Zonka?
And I guess with that COVID-related costs, were they COVID people who were on their own quarantine? Was that people who were taking care of sick COVID or exposed to COVID? Or is these people confirmed with COVID, like the policy that was suggested?
It was a combination of all those things.
So those 70 hours weren't people with confirmed COVID? Those 70,000 hours weren't?
It was for quarantine. It was for people. There was federal legislation that was in place that said if you were exposed and you were a healthcare worker, you would stay away from the workplace for 10 days. That was there. It was the people who had a family member and were exposed. It was people who had COVID themselves.
So if that happens now, if this policy had passed and was in place, that wouldn't be covered? They wouldn't be covered with the same incentives they were given before?
Not unless the board changed
So I don't even
the
know how you
draft of the
compare that
policy to
number.
do that.
I mean, to use the 70,000 hours lost or 70,000 hours for the employee, if that's not there even with that policy. Does that make sense?
I understand where you're coming from, Madam Chair, if it's all right.
But that's, again, I'll just say that's why we have sick leave. I mean, that's what sick leave is for.
Yeah,
That's just my opinion. And again, if this policy was designed, I guess, to incentivize people, then just say this is the incentive. Don't say, well, if you've gotten the vaccine and you happen to get sick, so it encourages people to get it. Just say what you want. And if you're the employer and you want there to be a vaccine policy in place, put a vaccine policy in place, period, and be done with it. And you'll either have the support of the board and the community or you won't. But I don't like this dancing around and play. I think it's game playing. I just don't like the way, and I know that's not management's intention. Their intention is to save money. I don't like the way that this is written.
Right. I understand where you're coming from, but in terms of calling it game playing, I call it the difference between forcing a needle in someone's arm and allowing them to make a choice, providing a benefit that they're free to make use of or not. So I hear you, but I really do disagree and draw issue with terming it game playing.
I just don't think this is the method in doing it. I mean, that's all.
It's fine.
I do want to make a comment that this is going on everywhere in the county right now, and as someone who works in another business, and you guys all do that as well, the disaster funds are gone. So right now, if you got other employees out there and they've used up their sick leave, and the company can't afford to give more sick leave because, you know, you miss a week with everybody sick, it's hitting the community really hard now. And restaurants are closing because they don't have a choice. Their employees got sick and they can't open up. So this is something that we really need to come together as a county on, be supportive of one another, and try to find a way to get through it. It's going to be a tough couple months, but I just want to remind us of that this is a very emotional, hard situation. So everybody be on your best behavior and be kind, and let's help each other get through that. Commissioner Zonka, old light or new light, ma'am?
Old light.
Okay, we're going to move into item F13.
Card on that?
Thought we had a card.
I do on F13, and who's leading us into it?
I don't know what F13 is. I got it.
Florida Department of Transportation,
Oh,
yes?
okay, well, that's F12 on my,
Okay.
in my book.
Commissioner Smith, is this your one? Or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
This is something that I think we desperately need in this county. This is, Florida FDOT has proposed upgrading all the 16 crosswalks on Beachside here. And what is unique about this is they're going to put in-ground flashing lights. So when these lights flash, it's not just the ones on the sign, it's the lights, there'll be lights in the roadbed itself. So if you're a driver, you're going to know something's going on when all those lights are flashing at you. And currently, I understand that the lights have to be yellow because it's some federally mandated something or other. But our Department of Transportation is seeking to change that and change them to red. And when that happens, then that will occur here. These yellow lights would be replaced with red flashing lights. So I think this is a terrific thing for FDOT to come to us and propose, and it has, if it can save one life, I think it's a big deal. I think it can save a lot of lives, especially going forward when they turn to red. So I'd like to make a motion to pass this.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. I do have one comment card. I have another that's for questions only, so I'll wait in case there becomes question time. Ms. Sandra Sullivan? I did want to mention, Ms. Barbara, you put in a comment card for last item after public comment was closed. So if you want to put in for public comment on that, you can. So, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Sandra Sullivan, South Patrick Shores. So I live beachside. This is a very, these flashing yellow lights are very controversial, of course, because of a 12-year-old's death. And there have been a lot of comments on social media. The number one is red means stop. This doesn't address that. Number two, the confusion that is created by there being so much signage and lights and whatnot as there is. And I have concerns that this will make things worse to put these lights in the road. There's been no study to show that this is effective. That does not address the fundamental issue and the fundamental objection by thousands of people pertaining to red means stop. And a lot of these midway crosswalks don't even go anywhere. You cross the road, there's not even a park there. It would make sense with a D level of service to move the crosswalks to the intersections that exist there or put in a few others. Because TPO now, they're moving, and transportation is moving to these intelligent systems to detect people in crosswalks. It also, with a D level of service, would facilitate people making a left-hand turn. We're starting to return to pre-COVID level traffic. The traffic is pretty bad on A1A. Making a left turn gets much harder. Even turning a right turn, you sit there and wait minutes. So having intersections with red lights, their hawk systems, would facilitate people crossing. Taking out a few of these crosswalks would make much more sense than trying to retrofit them at what cost with lights that I think you're going to get a big pushback and a lot of nasty comments from the people that live beachside, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Lober, can we do the vote, or do you have something you need to
Just
say?
very briefly. I was going to say, we have actually very similar, if not identical, lights in Rockledge in District 2 on Barton Boulevard. I'll tell you, would I rather they be red for crosswalks? Absolutely. I don't know that that's an option at this point. If it's something that can be retrofitted later, I think they should look into doing that, because I think red would certainly be far more effective than yellow. I agree, yellow to me means proceed with caution, not stop. But that said, given that it's either yellow or not putting them out at all at this point, having seen them on Barton and having driven on that road as recently as a day or two ago, I think the real risk with this, if there is one, or the primary risk with this, is if they get installed in too many locations, people may then start to become a little bit less concerned about them. But as long as they remain few and far between, I think they do have an impact. And I say that having driven on the road that has them nearby a number of times. I'm going to support it today, but certainly if and when there's an ability to change them out for red lights instead of yellow, I think we should absolutely go forward and do that. I think that would be far superior. But, this is one of those, it's unknowable to know whether this is going to improve the situation. I would tend to think that it will. Might you be right, though? You might absolutely be correct, and that this might make it worse, but this is one of those judgment calls where it's impossible to know right now. I'd like to give it a shot if that's what Commissioner Smith wants to do, and see how it works.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One thing I failed to mention was that in addition to the flashing lights that will be in the road itself, and I've seen these in the Keys, they're pretty common down there, and boy, they're very effective. As a driver, I can tell you I was not impressed at all with the signs with the yellow lights, but when you see them flashing before you in the road, it gets your attention. But the other thing that I failed to mention was the fact that in addition to putting these crosswalks, upgrading these crosswalks, the upgrade will also include a button that the pedestrian will push that will activate the lights, but it also has a verbal message to the person that pushes the button. And it basically says something to the effect that be sure and look in both directions before crossing, and make sure all traffic has stopped before entering the crosswalk. So a 5-year-old can figure that one out. Don't step out if the cars are moving. So this is a terrific opportunity for us to make our roads a lot safer. And of course, as we've already said, FDOT has committed to me that these lights will be changed out to red as soon as possible, whenever that becomes available.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We're moving into public comment. Ms. Sandra Sullivan. Ms. Barbara Gorn, you'd be next, ma'am.
So, Sandra Sullivan, South Patrick Shores, and I'm here to talk about evacuation. We are, as I mentioned in the last meeting, a critical deficiency for evacuation, and I learned since I was last here that it is not just on Peneda, it's also on O'Galley. So we don't even have an alternate route to take to get off the barrier island, since both are a critical deficiency. Now, in 1999, both the county and the city of Satellite Beach entered into an agreement with the state, with Florida Communities Trust, to cap the density and to not move density, not to convert commercial buildings to residential buildings, etc. Now, what I have learned is that a former governor thought it best to do local rule and essentially and allow our local government to take things out of a comp plan. Now, why we still have a comp plan being managed by the state, I do not know if there's no oversight. But as I understand it, our government is supposed to work on a basis of checks and balances, so there should be state oversight. So that's one thing that needs to be fixed at the state level, is that these agreements for the safety of residents is addressed, and I would urge you to talk to the state. The second issue is that as the county and the city were both involved in this Florida Communities Trust under the Florida Administrative Code that governs that agreement, both were required to implement this. Now, obviously, what the city does affects the residents of an unincorporated. and it puts our lives at risk. Now, as I understand it, they plan to put, high density on the west side of A1A, putting much more density on the barrier island. And it's starting with the View, which is a block of 85-foot buildings. We're already a D-level service. I also want to mention with the application that was done, there's concurrency issues with schools that will put the school over concurrency. And the second aspect is the concurrency for the traffic. And so it seems to me agreements entered into in good faith by the county and the city should be enforced. The county actually objected to the increase in density back in 2001, formally to the state, and then the city was rewarded in kind by the Air Force in annexing to the city, so that change from 3.14 to 5 units per acre was done. But this property far exceeds the 5 units per acre. There's no TDR in any document, no legal document. I've done records requests for any document that would give them the right to this additional density. In addition, there are some other issues that I will address at a later time since I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Barbara? I think it's Gorn, right?
That's right.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Excuse me. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am thankful that you did not pass that motion for the double tier for the employees, because we don't need a double tier. We're not going to be, we're not supposed to be doing that in the county. I don't think we're supposed to be doing it at all in the state. We do not need, and that would create a double tier. You get your vaccination or you don't get your vaccination, you're going to be rewarded. It shouldn't be a reward system. We're all supposed to be responsible for our own care. That is part of being an American and part of our Constitution. You take care of yourself. We don't need the government taking care of us, telling us what we need to do. So I am thankful that you did not let that go through. And it's just really important to know that we individually have our own. And I have a feeling that there are a lot of us who do a lot of investigation. We have more time. Especially seniors, we have a lot of time to do investigation and look at different studies and listen to different opinions on people who are scientists and doctors above the local establishments. And I think that it's important that that be recognized. I have a list. I have more than a list this size of different notes that, facts, I'll say they're facts, that different doctors, scientists have put out there. And this is not something that we should be paying people to do if it goes against their inner being, what they feel is right for themselves. So I'm glad that there are those of you who agree with a lot of us out here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Item H1, Mr. Bate, are you? Oh, there he is.
I don't think your mic's on.
Up there it is. Sorry. Solid Waste Management Department is requesting the board to adopt 4 rate resolutions and to confirm and certify the collection and disposal special assessment roles to the Brevard County Tax Collector. There are no changes to the disposal fee assessment or the impact fee assessment resolutions. The residential and commercial collection assessment resolution has a 3% increase in cost as per the contract between the county and Waste Management. The gate charge assessment resolution increases Class 3 and construction demolition waste from $23.66 per ton to $31.16 per ton. Increases commercial vegetative waste and pallets from $23.66 per ton to $40 per ton. And the resolution ties all future gate fee increases to the consumer price index for garbage and trash on an annual basis.
Commission?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Lober. I do, thank you. Ms. Sandra Sullivan.
Sandra Sullivan, South Patrick Shores. I just wanted to mention, it seems like I come to many of these meetings and seeing dollar increases for the residents of Brevard. We have, in my community, a lot of elderly people and veterans on fixed incomes. And seeing that police, garbage, fire, utilities, FPL's going up as well, and then now an increased cost for the solid waste. I just would like to remind you that we do have many seniors and veterans in our community who do not see corresponding increases in the amount of money that they bring in. I also wanted to mention the concern with the federal spending and the inevitable inflationary period that I think so many people see coming, that everything is costing more. You go to Lowe's and you see things that were $15 now costing $20 in a period of 2 months. So this inflationary period is coming, and I would just urge our commission to be very fiscally cognizant of our residents who are on fixed incomes. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Lober.
Yeah, just briefly, Ms. Sullivan, I just want to point out, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of talking about inflation and the cost of goods going up. The fact of the matter is the cost of goods and the cost of services is going up. From my understanding, and I'm not talking about having a reasonable reserve, that's separate, but we're not a for-profit enterprise here. We try to pass along the costs without changing them to reduce or increase them, because if we charge less than our cost to provide the service, we've got to make up that shortfall somewhere, and someone has to subsidize the folks that are getting the service at a discount. So this is one of those, it's never popular to increase anything, but absent another source of funds, I don't really know that we have any other choice. When it comes to sewer, or when it comes to solid waste collection, or whether it's law enforcement, as you mentioned, or even fire rescue, both the fire side and the EMS side, the fact is, these are necessary services. I think the vast majority of people would agree that they're core governmental obligations, whether it's public safety infrastructure, even a basic service like trash collection. The problem is the cost of these things has gone up dramatically. A lot of these things, especially the items that we either can't or we don't do in-house, like waste collection, where we put it out to a competitive bid process and the bids come back and they're several tens of percents higher. It's not 10 or 20%, it's 30 or 40% higher. And we went through the process that we always have gone through, that every other county goes through and that a lot of states go through in terms of how they advertise these RFPs or these potential contracts. We just don't have that level of control. I think to the extent that we can bring certain services in-house that we plan on providing in perpetuity or for the foreseeable future, that may be something to look at. I think solid waste is a great example of an opportunity for that, where we can bring that in-house to limit that profit motive or to take out that profit motive. But when it comes to something like this, where we're basically hostage to the companies that bid, and by extension that will bid after the 7-year contract is up, unless we bring that in-house, I really don't know what else we can do. And if there is something else that I'm missing, whether it's obvious or whether there's something that's not so obvious, I'm happy to sit down with you and talk with you, or anyone else that has a suggestion as to how to save money and avoid any of the increases. I just don't know of any way. This is one of those items, when I was doing a staff briefing on it, my comment at the end of the item was something like, well, I guess we don't have much of a choice. This is one of those where I don't want to vote for it, but if we don't vote for it, the problem is we can't continue to provide the service. So I just want you to understand, I do respect the fact that people are on a fixed income. I do respect the fact that not everyone has the same means as everyone else. But I just don't know an alternative to this one.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 3-2 with Commissioner Zonka and Tabaya in objection. Item F12, H2?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move to reconsider the last item.
You want to reconsider H1?
I do. The last item we just voted on to approve.
Okay, I have a motion to reconsider it. Do I have a second? And it fails for a lack of second.
See, that's the thing. You know, we
Okay.
can shoot something down if we know it's going to pass and then claim we didn't vote to raise something, but
Item H2. Yes, sir.
The Solid Waste Management Department is requesting that the board determine that the use of Brevard County Road and Bridge to perform roadway and entranceway construction at the US 192 property is in the public interest and has an overriding public benefit over bidding the work to private contractors. The use of road and bridge for this project will save both time and costs. This project is necessary in order to perform any additional board-approved construction on the property.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners,
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
motion by Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Lober?
I have no idea what the alternative to this is, but since there was no alternative to the last one, I'm going to be voting against this. So since that's the politically convenient thing that folks are doing, I'm going to give it a shot and see how it goes on this one.
I think they're two separate things.
But again, this is something I don't know that the county has a realistic, reasonable alternative, but I'll vote against this.
Commissioner Zonka?
I'll just say this, I mean, part of what was in that gay charge was capital improvements for this project, which I think I've made my position well-known through, I could ask my staff dozens of meetings on how I feel about the new landfill, and I've never supported that, so that's why I didn't vote for it. So
Right.
it's not my responsibility to defend myself to you or anybody else, so you want to not vote on things because you're going to throw a temper tantrum, that's fine, but it doesn't make sense to me.
It's just telling, Commissioner, that you wouldn't allow it to be reconsidered because, quite frankly, there is no alternative to it. Had you allowed it to be reconsidered and actually fail, you'd be in a situation where someone would have to come back to the other side of the vote. So if we really want to start parsing things, I think we need to have the full context out there.
And that makes complete zero sense, but thank you for your input. Can we move on? This is just getting silly.
Yeah, I have a motion. Do I have a second to approve this item? Second by Commissioner Tabaya. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 3-2 with Commissioner Zonka and Lober in objection. We're going to move to item I1.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Yeah.
This is a request to authorize just short of $3 million of American Rescue Plan Act funding out of the $8 million allocated for District 4 water infrastructure for the South Central Zone C Septic to Sewer project. It would also authorize the chair to execute the construction contract upon review and approval of the County Attorney's Office, Risk Management and Purchasing, and authorize the county manager or designee to approve any necessary budget change requests. This request for American Rescue Plan Act funding is due to the lowest bid coming in millions of dollars over the approved budget and available grants for this project.
Commissioner Zonka, is that a new light? No. That's a red light. Commissioner Tabaya?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Commissioner Smith, I applaud you on hitting the ground running on this one. My question is, as we move forward as a board, and I think Commissioner Zonka might be on the same page, are we bringing all these projects to the board?
I think we have to, but there's some background here that you should know about.
Okay, I support it, just to be clear.
And I just want to clear the air. This was put out to bid, and we actually thought it was going to come in much lower. But we only had one bidder. And the key here is that we have $1 million grant from St. John's Water Management, and that will expire. And I got a 90-day extension on that. However, the bidder has basically told us he's taking his chips to go home unless we honor this by a certain date. So I had to come to the rescue. And so these are the funds that are available to me.
American Rescue.
Well,
American Rescue.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Well, I greatly applaud that and appreciate you staying on top of all this and bringing this in, because this isn't something that just benefits your district. This is something that'll benefit
Amen.
the waterway. And I again, I still would like to figure out as to whether or not this may be an unusual circumstance, or is this the status quo as we move forward with that?
I can answer that. We have prepared and I reviewed, we obtained today from Natural Resources, Utilities, and Public Works, and we have put together tiered listings for each of the 5 districts, and we're going to be scheduling in the very near future meetings with each one of you so that you can determine which of the projects within the scope of what's available under ARPA that you would like to have funded in the districts consistent with what the board approved at the prior meeting. So we are well on the way of doing that. We're making sure that we have good information to help you each make the decisions, and then we will package that as an item coming back to the board for consideration.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Lober. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, passes 5-0. We're moving into item J1.
As they're getting set up, Madam Chair, I'll just have a standing second for Commissioner Smith on J1 and J2.
Okay, sir.
Right. Good evening, Commissioners. This is for a purchase and sale agreement and escrow agreement for a portion of county-owned land to Florida Power and Light for substation. It's in District 4. This is to sell 10.014 acres of a portion of county-owned land. It's south of Charlie Cobell Way, and it's behind the South Central Wastewater Treatment Plant. As part of the agreement, it would connect an express feeder from the substation to and from to benefit the county's South Central Wastewater Treatment Plant. As part of it, it would serve as a backup, and they would build an express feeder cable to be installed at the expense of FP&L, valued at $450,000, which would be placed in escrow until its anticipated completion date of December 31st, 2023, and at the sale price of $651,000, which was determined by a fair market value appraisal.
Do you have a motion?
Madam Chair, I would like to approve the J1.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Lober.
Yes, ma'am.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes 5-0. Item J2, Ms. Bentley, you said you would read a script for me on this. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. This is a hearing for the purposes of the Federal Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, referred to as TEFRA, as required by Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended, regarding the possible issuance by the Capital Trust Agency of one or more installments or series of its educational facilities revenue bonds, Pineapple Cove Classical Academy at Lockmar, Inc. Project Series 2021, the bonds in an aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $24 million. At this point, we can move to the public hearing portion of this item.
I have no cards, ma'am.
All right, and are there any persons in the audience who wish to speak who have not provided a card to the chair? Seeing nothing, Madam Chair, have you received any written communications from anyone on this item?
No, ma'am. Anybody else?
Thank you. Then we can conclude the public hearing, and the board may move to a motion.
Okay. Commission, do I have a motion to approve this?
So move.
Motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Lober. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Just so you guys know, this is just a pass-through through us with no liability to the county. Item J4? J3, sorry.
You were just, you know what you were doing. You were just testing
I
to
know
see
there's
if we were
just so many
paying
cards
attention.
tonight.
Okay.
Okay, sir, you're on.
Yes. The purpose of this, I spoke to Animal Services. We had an instance in my district where a gentleman was complaining about a nuisance regarding a dog. And I read the current ordinance, and it kind of seems silly to me. If a dog was barking for, and Eden, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way it was written, that a dog barking for 30 minutes could be considered a nuisance, but if the dog stopped for 15 seconds, then the clock started again. Well, you can see the absurdity of that, because if the person said, my dog stopped barking for 15 seconds, then it's going nowhere. And if anybody has ever suffered from a neighbor's dog that barks continuously for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, you can imagine what it's like if it's a half an hour or several hours, one. Two, as I'm talking to Animal Services, I'm thinking, what about the silly dog? I mean, it's not silly, but this poor dog's out there barking for a reason. Maybe it's too hot, maybe it needs water. Somebody needs to pay attention and bring attention to the fact that this dog has a problem and is barking. So I worked with Animal Services, and this is what we came up with.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Lober, I have cards. Do you want to speak before
Just
the
real
cards or
briefly.
after?
Yeah, I do have a slight concern that this is going to create two tiers of animals in Brevard County, those that make sounds that are common to the respective species and those that do not. So we may have cats that meow, or cats that woof, or dogs that meow, or dogs that woof. This could, okay, that was a crummy attempt at humor. I'm sorry. I tried a little levity.
Okay,
worked.
now I lost me on that one. Mr. Nathan Slasher.
For the record, Nathan Slusher at Allendale
I'm
Street,
so
Titusville.
sorry. I do that all the time. Go ahead.
You're good. Actually, I want to tell you thank you for the explanation. I didn't know you were working with Animal Services, and that's really good. I do appreciate it. My only issue, though, is if it was 30 minutes and the wording was a problem, why did we completely change it instead of just fixing the wording? Why are we reducing it to 15 minutes? It seems like a stretch, and if we're only writing laws and changing laws just because of annoyances, we should question that principle.
Sorry, if you address it towards me, then
No,
they
I'm
can
sorry.
answer
I
in a
thought she
few
was gonna say
minutes
something.
after. Okay.
Not a problem, but thank you for the explanation. It's greatly appreciated. But again, 15 minutes and changing it completely seems like a push.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Smith, I have no more lights, sir.
Okay, I'd like to make a move to pass J3.
I'll second it.
Motion, and I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item J4.
Okay. J4 kind of is an outcropping of J3. We had another issue where somebody was bitten and they got staples. Well, the ordinance was written only for sutures. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. So
Sir.
you can see the absurdity of that, because a bite's a bite. So I worked with Eden Bentley, and this is what we came up with.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. That was a motion, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item J5. And I am going to let you go first, Commissioner Tamayo.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And we've got some audio-visual here. So this is just to give a reminder, and it's a 10-second clip I think we put on. Are you personally running this, or
Yes.
There's no sublease, or you're not receiving any payments from anyone on this?
I'm there almost every single day, open to close.
Thank you. Yeah, that was painful to put my face up there on that size. It's painful enough in this one. But last meeting, Mr. Powers, the leasee of the Complex Cafe, flat out lied to this board. I asked the simple question, did you lease this to somebody else? And as he just said, no. So following day, we caught Mr. Powers in a lie. Not only did he have a lease, it was signed and in fact notarized. Mr. Powers, as of yesterday, I believe, has vacated.
Oh, sorry.
Has vacated the property. Let me tell you what a terrible human being Mr. Powers is. A horrible, horrible, disgusting human being. Mr. Powers claimed COVID-related concerns as to get forgiveness from this board for rent payments. Meanwhile, Mr. Powers was charging another woman $2,000, $1,200 plus another $800 for, I guess, equipment to run that cafe. This man, I didn't spend one day in law school, but I do not know how this doesn't get to the level of fraud. This is absolutely abhorrent. The only good thing Mr. Powers did was not show up today, because there is not a damn thing that human could say to make up for A, lying to us, and B, the way his actions not only to taxpayers but to that other individual. So now that Mr. Powers has surrendered the property, the county can decide what to do with this as we move forward. And there are several options. And I wanted, again, these are not options. Some of these may align closer with the county manager, but I reached out and asked. First of all, I want to think about the cafe. We have to think when this building was built. This building is quite old, and the layout of Viera has changed quite a bit since then. And I won't mention which individual up here on the board pointed this very obvious thing out. But there weren't the amount of restaurants in the near vicinity. And Chair Pritchett has mentioned on numerous occasions, this was not her, by the way, but that government should not be involved where there is private industry. So there are 29 different restaurants within 1.5 miles of this property. And I, as always, highlighted number 4, Blaze Pizza,
Yes,
because
I was
it's by
laughing.
far the best.
Unlimited Parmesan cheese. Isn't that what
Unlimited
you said?
Parmesan
Yeah.
cheese, absolutely correct. I actually had someone send me an email saying, I think you have part ownership. I wish I had part ownership, because I send a lot of money that way. But either way, I'm not sure it's a necessity to put another cafe in there with 29 other businesses out there, as well as many that could come via Uber Eats or DoorDash. I did reach out to our constitutional officers and ask, should this become available, would you have any use? If I heard back that no one, that would not be a viable option. However, I did hear back, and the emails that are attached there from some of our constitutional offices. By the way, I also spoke with our county manager first to find out if there were any county non-constitutional office use for that space. And once I heard there was nothing direct, that's why I reached out here. I heard from Ms. Dana Blinkley and Ms. Sadoff that they would have some use for that, especially with COVID protocol and leaving people at social distancing as we move forward. It's become that much more important. So what I would like to do is make a motion, and the motion is, first of all, to deal with the current situation of, and listen, I would like to go a lot further. I think that we need to take action against this individual for what he not only did to this board, but what he did to taxpayers. So I'd like to, I hope this motion gives the leeway to Ms. Bentley as she moves forward. So the motion is, this board directs the county attorney's office to send all notices, if any, required to address the termination by the tenant's surrender of the premises and terminate the lease based on all other violations of the lease, including but not limited to attempted assignment or sublease of the property without county approval and failure to operate the cafes as required by the lease agreement. Further, county office is directed to initiate all appropriate legal actions against the tenant to recover damages incurred by the county, taking into consideration the deterrent effect of bringing action against those who are willing to make misrepresentations to the county. And before you guys read that, I got that directly.
I'll second it.
I got that directly from Eden's office, so these are not my words. these would
thought they were
be
pretty
hers.
good.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed.
Yeah.
I don't clearly write that well. So that's the motion. But I would, second of all, because, and I appreciate Commissioner Lober putting this forward, talking about maybe going out to bid. I think there's a second option that we need to look at, and it's in there as providing this to the constitutional officer who can serve the citizens much better than a cafe where employees have other options to get food. So that's the motion, and I'd like to get that at least passed and see where to go second of all. I'm sorry to take the lead, but I'm just really insulted that this gentleman lied to us.
How do you really feel?
I do.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that you need to take some classes or something to be more forthcoming.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm not very good at poker.
I know you have dirty word alert a lot tonight, too. I have 3 comment cards on this, Commissioner. I'm going to go ahead and call those first. Is that all right?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry, Madam Chair.
No, I'm glad you let in with it. Ms. Sandra Sullivan? Okay. Paul Norstick? I'm not saying that right.
Novik.
Thank you. Paul Novick. Looks like a little R in there, though.
I just wanted to hand you all a copy of the agreement that I had with Steve Powers, okay, just so you have a copy.
Okay, I'll be glad to pass them down for you, sir. Okay, thank you.
I was unaware of any of this, okay?
This is your bank bill. I think that was a boo-boo. But you got cash in it.
I was unaware of any of this until yesterday, okay? On the top of the agreement with Steve Powers is a UCC agreement on the equipment and the fixtures that is filed with Brevard County and with the state of Florida. I'm sure Commissioner Lober as well as Ms. Bentley knows what that is. All of the equipment in these 2 cafes, I have a lien on, okay? I don't know what direction this board wants to go in, but if they decide they want to lease the property or continue the lease on the property to the people who were swindled here, I have no problem entering into the same agreement with them as far as the equipment that I had with Mr. Powers. Otherwise, I'll be more than happy to pull the equipment out of here, whatever the board wants to do.
Thank you, sir. Miss Maria Jordan? And you are the one who's currently really operating the cafe, correct?
Yes, I've been
Okay.
operating the cafe since April 1st, and I believe my customers like the food. I have really great reviews. I don't know if you guys tried it yet. I took over the cafe at the Building C since July 1st.
This July?
This July.
Okay.
I started running this one. I have my licenses. I will be happy to take over the lease if I can. Yeah, I wasn't aware that Steve didn't have the rights to sell me the place and sell me and subleasing the cafe, so I'm ready to operate Monday again, if I can reopen.
Did you pay him anything yet?
I did.
How much
I
you
did pay
paid
him rent for the month of July, and since it wasn't approved, the reduction of the rent is already covered, so I paid $1,200 on July 1st, and I pay him the first month.
If we gave the reduction in rent, was he going to pass that along to you?
I hope so.
Oh, I don't. Okay.
Yeah, what do you think?
A question, have you put a financial investment into moving in over the last month?
Yes, I did. Me and my husband, we both quit our jobs, and we changed the whole menu. We brought some new equipment there. It's not big equipment, but it's something that helps with the smell, with the food, with the quality of the food. When we took over, there was a lot of expired stuff, so we have to replace everything. So,
can you give me an idea of how much financial investment you've put into it?
At least $5,000.
$5,000.
At least.
Okay.
Plus the monthly payment I made of $2,000 last month.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Ms. Jordan?
No, but I have
Some comments, that's
some
it.
comments.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
You do? Do you have questions for her? Hold on a second, ma'am, don't leave.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Tabaya?
Please be nice. I like her.
As do I. I'm sorry. Did you retain counsel at all when you had the contract between you and Mr. Powers?
No.
And you are of at least 18 years of age?
Yes.
And you had the ability to review the contract that was very clear that Mr. Powers did not have the ability to assign those rights to you?
Mm-hmm.
I feel for you. I absolutely, and I'm sorry you were taken advantage of, but as an adult, as an adult woman, it's absolutely horrific that you had to go through this.
Yes,
But
it is.
unfortunately, that was a contract between you and Mr. Powers, and the county is not party to that contract any way possible. So this is not a slight to you. In fact, I think first thing I think Commissioner Lober would tell you, the first thing you need to do is probably go get an attorney.
I already wrote that to her today.
Okay. I think the best that we can do as a board up here, and I specifically asked Ms. Bentley how far, what can I say and not get us in trouble? Let me tell you. I think as a board, we need to do our best to take action against Mr. Powers. So he is dealing with this, so he cannot pursue the contract that he has with Ms. Jordan. And in the future, Ms. Jordan, do not sign a contract in the upper right-hand corner that says last name, comma, number. That is, there were more misspellings on that contract than there were correct spellings.
Yes.
And just because it's notarized,
Doesn't mean it's-
it's probably still best to seek counsel.
Yes, I have my attorney. He told me the contract is not valid because he doesn't even own the equipment that he was selling in.
Absolutely.
So the contract has no
I
value.
still want to do the best to protect you. I hope the attorney's right. I have no reason to believe one way or another. And I appreciate your ingenuity. I just am sorry that you're the victim of the swindling of Mr. Powers. I was the one vote that said, man, that guy was not the greatest here last time. So, should it not go your way, please understand that's not anything against you as an individual. I greatly apologize for Mr. Powers.
I will, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions for Ms. Jordan?
Just one brief
Question
one.
for her.
All right, I'm going to kind of dance around this as Commissioner Tabaya did as well. You may want to talk, since it sounds like you do have an attorney now, with your attorney on the difference between the contract being void and the contract being voidable.
Yes.
I would just kind of add that to your bullet list of other things to discuss with them.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
thank you.
Ms. Bentley, is there any way we can get a refund back from what we credited to Mr. Powers and make him?
We may be able to go after him for damages. We're going to have to go through all the notices, see how it all works out, because there are a variety of options here.
Okay.
So we'll look at that, and we'll see if we can do that.
Okay.
Madam Chair, does my motion give you that?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Okay, no, hold on just a minute. Commissioner Smith after.
Sorry, ma'am.
That's all right. No, you're fine.
It looks like you killed my light, though.
I know, but haven't got to talk yet. So what I would like to see if there's a way to do it is to let Ms. Jordan remain in there through the end of the year because she's made an investment, and then have a conversation again and see how it's going. I don't disagree with you, Commissioner Tabaya, on utilizing those offices as either. I'd like to spend a little more, if we do that at the end of the year, finding the best fit. Commissioner Smith, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maria, you're clearly a very trusting person, but as you've learned the hard way, and experience is sometimes an awful educator, you're trusting to your own detriment. You got hosed, pure and simple. You saw an opportunity, and it was something you really wanted to do, And unfortunately, you were dealing with somebody that has no values, no worthwhile values anyway. And so you got hosed. And clearly, we, the government, we, the commission, we owe you nothing. But I can tell you that I'm very sympathetic, and I bet that there are at least one or two others up here that are as well. So my desire as the District 4 Commissioner who is in this building, and I understand Commissioner Tobias's point of view that there's a lot of other competition here, but competition's good, and the marketplace should choose the winner. And I know that we, the government, could use that space for a lot of good purposes. But the fact is, you've gone out of your way, you've spent a lot of money, a lot of effort to try and make this a success. And from my perspective, the marketplace is the best determinant of who the winners are and who the losers are. You have a lot of competition. As Commissioner Tobias said, there's an awful lot of other restaurants in the area. And when this original restaurant cafe was put in here, that didn't happen. That didn't exist. So if we were to give you an opportunity to continue that for, as was mentioned, maybe for 6 months, maybe we could give you a 6-month temporary lease, and at the end of 6 months, then we could determine whether we wanted to renew that lease, and you would have an opportunity to walk away or to plead your case for us to extend it. That would be my desire at this point. I know that my staff uses that cafe a lot, even though there are a number of other places they could go. It's very, very convenient for them. They're in this building. And there's a lot of other people in this building that use that cafe for the same reason. If people have more time, then they take advantage of the time and they jump in their car and they go someplace else in Vieira. But I would like to see us give you an opportunity to succeed, and I would hope that the rest of the commissioners would agree.
Commissioner Loper.
All right. I agree in spirit, but the problem is I don't think that we can lawfully do what was suggested. I think we have to go through a competitive process and put it out. I don't believe, as much as I'd like to, and if Ms. Bentley tells me I'm wrong, I'm happy to go with you guys on that.
Okay.
But I don't think we can lawfully do that. My thought, just generally speaking, is to the extent that we can work with you, I'd like to work with you to try to make this process as easy as possible. I do think it has to go out in order to be leased to you again. I have no problem accelerating the competitive solicitation process or asking staff to do that to the extent that they can so that you're not sort of in the lurch for longer than need be. But I think, if we go that way, it's going to be incumbent on you to make sure that you get all the docs that you need to get in. To the degree that there are questions that staff's comfortable fielding, I would suggest that you reach out to them, maybe even as soon as a couple days from now, even before it's advertised, just to get an idea in terms of what it is that's going to be involved with that bid process. I do agree, though, I would like, if I had my druthers, whatever a druther is, I'd like to see her there doing what she's doing, because it seems like she's motivated for the right reasons and comes across as a genuine, decent person. I do agree, to the extent we can give her an opportunity, let's do it. But I think that would involve having to have it go through a competitive solicitation. There's always going to be a need for any or all of the constitutional officers to have more space. It's never going to go away. If they really need more space, I think we may even have a little space left at the Merritt Island Service Annex. We may be running out, but we may have a little bit left. They're welcome to come over there. It takes up a little parking, but the more the merrier. Come on down. That's my inclination. So if we have a majority here that's willing to do that, I would suggest that now that, did we have a vote on the initial motion?
We just had a motion.
Okay.
Well, we didn't have a
Well,
motion yet.
on the motion to terminate, did we get through that already?
No, we haven't.
I would suggest
fulfilled that yet.
if we do want to go in this direction, I'm sorry to kind of lop things on top of it, that the next motion, if this is the direction that a majority wants to go, that we authorize staff to develop, advertise, and award a competitive solicitation for Brevard County Food Concession Services for the Vieira Government Center, and as well to keep them tied together, the Harry T. and Harriet V. Moore Justice Center, that we also authorize staff to take reasonable measures to accelerate the competitive solicitation process. We authorize staff as well to negotiate a contract with a selected new vendor, which we're hoping is going to be the one sitting in the audience here, but maybe not, and provide a recommendation of lease agreement to the board at staff's soonest opportunity, and also authorize the chair to execute any resulting contract amendments or extensions necessary upon review and approval by the county attorney's office, risk management, and purchasing services. So I think maybe we need to go through Commissioner Tobias first, vote on that, and then go to
I'd like to call a
this.
question on Commissioner Tobias' motion.
Okay.
And I'd like to second, you made a motion?
Yes, sir,
I'll
that's the
second
motion
that.
afterward.
I'll second.
Well, he had two parts of a motion. I don't think they'll jive. So Commissioner Tobias, do you want to?
I think you just said the one. You said the one.
Madam Chair, can I make a comment, then I'll pull my motion? Then I'll pull my motion, because clearly, you know, it's not going to go in the direction that.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Smith, I gotta, you know, I feel bad for Ms. Jordan over here. We can't lecture her. Literally, this commission got hosed 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Literally, we stood up here, with the exception being me, and said, oh, we feel sorry for you, we're gonna throw all this rent money. And we did it, so we have
Yeah.
no reason. I was apologizing on behalf of the asshole
Commissioner
that
Tobias.
I am sorry, but that took advantage of somebody.
Yeah.
It's a legal term of art.
But, Ms. Jordan, we have no, and I was in the minority of that, but we voted to give him a break. I am willing to, I don't want to do it again, and we're just as bad when we do it all the time up here. We say one thing, but usually not 2 meetings back to back. It's absolutely disgusting. But here's what I'll go with you, Commissioner Smith, on your motion. If you put, or Lobers, if we put a caveat on here, you're all about marketplace. That's not the marketplace. Let me tell you what we're talking about. We're talking about, because I looked this up, 2,500 square feet that we're going to lease out at approximately 16, assuming we do full. Remember, we gave breaks on this. So we're leasing this out at less than, what is that, 70 cents a square foot. So if any of the businesses out there are anywhere near that 70 cents a square foot, then that's marketplace. But I guarantee you're going to find, even dealing with traffic flow and all that stuff, they're paying multiples, 5, 10, 15 times that. So let's not talk about marketplace, because it's not marketplace when you're literally charging 1/20th, when you're subsidizing rent out there. And I don't disagree with Commissioner Lober on that. You're 100% correct. There could be 50,000 square feet, and that wouldn't be enough for a constitution. I don't want to pick on the 4, female constitutional officers. I think the same would go for the sheriff on this one as well. So clearly, my idea to provide that space is not an attractive one. I just want to remind the board that we are about ready to do the exact same thing that we did 2 weeks ago. We feel sorry for you, guy, COVID, all that good nonsense for this individual out there. I'm going to lose again, but I don't want to say I told you so in another 2 weeks or whatever. I get paid the same no matter what.
If we go this route, we're doing the same thing any landlord would do. We're going by signed documents that bind them to an agreement.
Let me make one suggestion. I'm pull my motion. Make one suggestion. I'm not going to make it. The lease there is a joke. It is, and it's not legal's department. This is just something that we perpetuated, and I shouldn't say we, because I didn't vote for the extension to give that not nice man the 4-month of. I was the one vote to say no on that one. Remember, I'm the bad guy up here. I would ask that if we go down that road, I do not support. But there needs to be some sort of liquidated damages should we end up with this type of situation again. Maybe Ms. Jordan would have had an easier time had we had a lease that wasn't parceled together 15 times over again. So Again, I'll pull my motion. You do whatever you want with Mr. Powers. I've
What are you
said
doing?
what I had to say about and again, I apologize. You know, I really hope things work out for you. I'm entrusted with taxpayers and not with handing out free stuff. I'm sorry, you know, you'll find a lot kinder people up here. But I would ask that we at least do it with a document that is fair and understandable. So that, I'll pull back my motion. You do whatever the heck you want with Mr. Powers. You do whatever the heck you want with, I've made it very clear that I'd rather go to a constitutional officer so they can serve the constituents better. I'm sorry for the rant. Again, I don't know, I didn't have my coffee, but I do have a good...
We have a new Keurig back there.
I do have a good board report, so thanks, guys, so much. Sorry for getting frustrated.
Mr. Zonka.
Wow, I don't know what to say that wasn't said, including a whole lot of bad words. But, you know, maybe the answer is not, I mean, aside from what you've suggested, and maybe I will lose too, again, I feel terrible for this nice lady. I mean, it's sad, but I probably would be a little more cautious before entering into something so binding and so risky, especially quitting your job. So I feel for you, I do. It's disgusting that he came up here and lied to the board and then asked for money and for help, because
We're not used to people lying and committing fraud to us.
right,
Yeah.
it's not that we're above that, but at the same time, I mean, you're lying to your community as well, and
Yep.
you're asking for help. So maybe a suggestion would be to see what people's proposals are. Instead of putting out criteria, see what people would want to do with the place, because then that may drive up, you know, the rent that could be able to be collected. I know that the other courthouse, I know, and it's so funny because Mr. Powers, you know, pitched a fit when they had food trucks go out there. He lost his mind because in his lease, it said that he was the sole exclusive food provider, but yet employees at the courthouse were enjoying food trucks because they wanted options, because they didn't like what he was providing. So again, I think I would be interested to see what would be proposed for that area, because this is an up-and-coming area. And if not, you know, an option always could be a break area, sit area. We could put vending machines in there so employees could have vending options, because that seems to be the thing with people that don't have the time to run to Vieira, you know, to that nice restaurant or whatever. They don't have an hour. They just want to run down and grab a quick snack. Maybe that's the answer if we don't like the vending or don't like the restaurant options. But I would just hesitate to leave it to staff to say, let's see what people propose and sort of put out there and compete with the marketplace by saying our rent here is only $1,600 or whatever. So I don't know, it's just a thought. I think, you know, because it is such a booming area, we may be surprised on who may opt to come in with a proposal for that space or for those two spaces.
Well, yeah, we could put it out, as Commissioner Lober pointed out, we can put this out for bid, and
But putting it out for bid is, we would have the criteria. We would say,
Right,
this is,
right.
then this is what the rent's going to be, this is what are you going to do? I'd rather see what people's ideas are for the place.
Frank,
And
you
if
wanted
we
to
don't
say
like
something?
it, then we can go to vending. But I would hesitate to give up that space.
Madam Chair?
Just a second, Frank? Mr. Bate?
Depending on what the board can do, we can put out, I already spoke to staff, knowing what the county attorney's thoughts were going to be relative to the lease if it happened. We were ready to put out a competitive solicitation as early as Thursday, August 12th, have it back to the board by the 27th, excuse me, the due date by the 27th, keep it shorter, and then do the checks and review the responses between August 30th and September 3rd, so that we could bring something back to the board by September 14th. That would be if it was a competitive solicitation. We could try to put that in the form of, and I spoke to Mr. Darling about that, we could put that in the form of an RFP to see in terms of proposals as well, right? Could we not? Yes. And do it in the same time frame, which would give you the option of someone could come in just with what's there already, or someone could have an alternative proposal, but we'll give it that same 14-day period. It's shorter than normal, but if the board's concerned about leaving the space open, you know, you've got we could do it as quickly as that. If the board made that the direction you want us to follow, we would accomplish both the competitive bid and/or request for proposals for anything that would be alternative to what we put out.
Ms. Bentley? Okay, if we do this process, how long does Ms. Jordan have to remain in there if she's?
She does not have any time.
She has
We
to
have
leave right
re-entered the
away.
premises.
So right
But
now
we need to
she's-
clean up this lease situation.
Okay.
We need to send the necessary notices because he abandoned it, and we also need to send notices because you want to terminate it because of other breaches.
Okay, so.
So that you have two prongs.
You want us to, one, terminate the lease we're in right now, correct? Okay, and then two, we can talk about the other option then. And I feel so bad with the situation you've gotten into. I just do, because, you know, if you go sublease, you trust the person you're subleasing from that they're telling you the truth as well. I hope you have a remedy there to get some financial help with it. This center we have here, guys, I guess we got to figure out what to do, but it's mainly here to serve the employees here. You know, you're not driving around Vieira saying, hey, let's go to the government center for lunch. Now, if they put in a Chick-fil-A, maybe, I don't know, but I think that's a very creative idea, Commissioner Zonka. But this is mainly to serve you guys as employees, so you have a quick place to go eat lunch, because Frank doesn't let you have a long lunch break. So I guess, Commissioner Lober, let me go ahead. Would you go ahead and frame a motion
Yep.
to terminate lease, and then?
Yeah, I do want to add, just for Commissioner Tobias' benefit, the motion that I had laid out earlier, which contemplated the termination being a motion that would pass before this would pick up, did give staff the ability to negotiate a contract, and with that, they certainly would be expected and anticipated to clean up the deficiencies that were in the original contract. So I'll go ahead, I'll just restate it for everyone's benefit since it's been a little bit. Motion will be first to terminate the existing lease agreement with Mr. Powers on the basis that Commissioner Tobias laid out at the outset of this item. Secondarily, we'll authorize staff to develop, advertise, and award a competitive solicitation for Brevard County Food Concession Services for the Vieira Government Center and the Harry T. and Harriet V. Moore Justice Center. We will authorize staff to take measures, reasonable measures to accelerate the competitive solicitation process as laid out by Mr. Abate. We'll authorize staff to negotiate a contract, including cleaning up the language with the selected new vendor, and provide a recommendation of the lease agreement to the board, which is anticipated to come back to us
Commissioner
September
Lober,
14th.
can we do the terminating one first? Because I think that's
Yeah.
got a little bit of a conflict with what they just discussed a second ago.
Okay. All right, then I'll scrap that. I'll pull
Okay.
any motion that I made up to this
Okay.
point. I'll go ahead and move to terminate the lease with Mr. Powers on the basis of the statements of Commissioner Tobias earlier.
Okay.
And all notices?
No, and all notices?
And we'll authorize staff to take any and all necessary action, including sending out notices as appropriate to effectuate that goal.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Now, we need to frame the motion to where we're getting more of a creative idea of what's going in and not just doing the standard one of how we're doing it. How do you want to frame this, or you want Frank to help you, or?
I would just suggest a request for proposals and see what kind of interest we get in the place. I'd rather see that than just put it out for, because I don't want the same problems that we had previous to be a possibility.
Okay.
And
Could be
maybe
anything.
And maybe, you know, the staff comes back with a report quickly on what kind of proposals we received. We could talk about it. It's important to me only because it's important to our employees.
Yeah.
And people that visit the courthouse or the government center.
Yeah.
Just, I'll tell you, on the courthouse side, we have two different locations we're talking about in the same agreement here. First off, on the courthouse side, it makes a lot of sense to keep it as a cafe. It doesn't make sense to have it as a bookstore. It doesn't make sense to have it as many other things. I can tell you that whether it's the public defenders, or I should say the assistant public defenders, the assistant state attorneys, the assistant regional counsel, the JAs, the judges, the deputies, probation staff, whether it's privatized misdemeanor or state on the felony side, they don't have a lot of time to get out. And I can tell you, having been there myself a number of times, if you have a short break or a short recess in trial and they say be back by a certain time, you're back then. It's not really an option not to be back. And going out even 10 minutes to another location in Vieira and having a sit down just isn't an option. So from my perspective, I think there's, with respect to the Justice Center, there's a huge incentive and a huge value to the personnel there, frankly, and the litigants and the folks that have proceedings before the court, to maintaining that as either a restaurant concession type of a food service location, as opposed to just having it go out and be anything possible. The location here is a little different, I think. I think there is a value, as you said, Madam Chair, with respect to having an availability for our employees here and maintaining it as a food service establishment. I think that outweighs whatever minuscule profit we might be able to gain over and above what we profit from having it set out as a food service establishment. I'm still comfortable having it go out as a solicitation for food concession services. If you all want to do differently, though.
I think maybe just have staff come back at next meeting and give us some options of what could be available for both places like that, and food establishments and.
And I think that we should keep it a food establishment, but what I want to make sure is that we've, if someone has a unique idea or something they want to do differently than what's there, or they want to take everything out of there, or they want to, redesign the place, or it's a small chain. It doesn't have to be a mom and pop place. We should, ideally, we'd like a mom and pop place, but again, like a Subway or a Panera, or, maybe that's wishful thinking.
I think it's
maybe
a good
that's wishful
idea.
thinking,
You
but.
don't know what
Yes.
is possible.
And if we can provide the
So
best selection for our employees
We
and.
can all get that question answered.
I just want to clarify, and if you guys are good with it, you're good with it. If we do that, now that we've terminated the lease, the young lady that came up here has no right to be there at this point. So the longer we delay this, and I'm not saying this should or shouldn't be a driving factor for you, it's leaving her in a very awkward spot. So just something to be aware of.
She's not in there right now, correct?
No.
Yeah, that's what
So
makes
she's
it.
not working.
Oh,
She
you're
put
not
it
in there
down.
right now at all?
If she
Okay.
was still there, it would be different.
Okay, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that. All right, no, I'm good with it in that case.
Okay, do you need a motion on that? Commissioner Tobias, yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just handed this out, so you all have copies of this. I know we're talking about what salad we want again, but let me read our clerk of the court, and I'm pretty certain courts are pretty important. This is from our clerk. You have the email. Let me just read one quick paragraph here, and as we talk about sandwiches versus salads. Our jury rooms do not have enough room to accommodate the amount of jurors our judiciary asks us to order. This lack of space existed pre-COVID and has become more prevalent since COVID. With COVID, we do not have enough area to accommodate social distancing. Guys, really, do we want to talk about salads and when we're talking about COVID cases being 5 times the amount, and we have a constitutional officer who's saying that she is hearing from our judges that there's not enough space to accommodate even prior to COVID. So if hoagies are more important, more power to you, but my deference is going to, I think, a core function. When we, again, have however many, thank you, Katie, for putting this nice 29, if you could have added the phone numbers so all county staff could have, got them delivered. I think we got to look to a core function, and if you think it's Subway, more power to you. That's what our clerk of the court said right there. So, if you're going to look for options, please put an option as to running our court systems efficiently and effectively based on not only what the clerk, but what judges are saying. I just ask that that be included.
I get it. Commissioner Lober, you're next. I just want to throw out, though, when you're kind of working in a place, we have a cafe where I work in the other place, you don't have time to run out. It saves hours on the staff that I'm sitting there grabbing something right there and I'm there. So I think there is a cost benefit there as well as employees served. So Commissioner Lober and then Commissioner Zonka, and then I think we're trying to figure out how to call this question.
I agree with you, Madam Chair. I'll say, though, on the front with respect to the item that Commissioner Tobias just mentioned with the jury assembly room, if you go there and you look in the jury assembly room, and I've been there more often than I care to admit, it is a large space. Ideally, you would want to keep all of the venire, so the potential jurors, in one spot so that as they're needed, they can be called up to the particular divisions. Separating them, certainly as to the location here within the government center, it makes no sense to use that for jury assembly purposes, to split it like that. If we absolutely had to, I guess we could make use of a second jury assembly room at the Moore Justice Center. But I'll tell you, the long-term solution to that is not fragmenting and splitting the jury assembly. It's making sure that they have an adequate single room to accomplish that with social distancing if that's something that continues to be a necessity. Whether that means we need to acquire more property and/or bang out some walls, we may have to. I don't know what's structural there and what's not. I can tell you they are pinched in that particular location, but I think, that's something that we can't rectify simply by giving them even a perpetual access and lease to this particular location. That's far from an ideal solution.
Commissioner Zonka.
And I'll just say this, you ask anybody, any employer, any I don't even fault them for saying they need this space. You specifically sent out a solicitation to the constitutional officers talking about this item and saying, Commissioner Tobias would like to know if you have any use for these properties. So of course, anybody would be irresponsible not to give you a possible use for those properties. So I don't fault them at all for suggesting how they could, potentially use those properties. I think there's a productivity issue, like Commissioner Pritchett said, and again, I think it serves more than just the employees. It serves the people that come here to these offices. So let's see what's out there. Let's see what they've got. And if it's something we decide we don't want to do, or it's something that doesn't look good or isn't a good fit, then we can revisit what we do with it. But I think we need to be, we shouldn't make a rash decision on just saying, let's just give up this office space, especially when we have other empty space at your office, Commissioner Lober, right?
Staff, do you have direction, or do you need some kind of vote? Are we good?
Oh, I think we need some direction, because we're trying to figure out
Okay.
what period of time to
Okay.
come back. Is it an RFP? We're not shortening the time frame.
Do you think 2 weeks is enough?
You can come back with
Or-
some ideas for us of what's out there, and then we can make a decision, RFP, or if someone approaches you now saying we would like to. It's a lot of work, isn't it? Mr. Darling's looking at me like this.
We were ready to put out an RFP, as I had discussed earlier, and I
Right.
think that's what I'm hearing you say. Do you want a shortened time frame for it?
Commissioner Zonka, can you frame something here for us?
I don't think I want to, do you think there's a risk by shortening the time frame?
Of course, there's going to be a risk if, the shorter the time frame,
Okay.
if we shorten it and no one is going, if you are
Exactly.
looking for creative ideas,
Yeah.
you need to give the people some time.
I mean, I knew
to
the
do
answer
it.
to the question, but I
Okay.
just basically
Yeah.
want to verify that. As much as I want to get somebody in there, I want to make
No,
sure
and
it's
that's
a
why
thoughtful
I want
decision.
to make sure, that's why I'm asking the board for the direction, because we don't want to,
And in your experience, what would you recommend the time frame?
I think a
With the
normal
standard?
time frame is a minimum of 30 days.
21 days, sir.
21?
That's pretty good.
Okay. And you think that's enough time to give you enough
For an
interest?
RFP?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
for an RFP.
Oh, that's
right.
pretty good.
All right.
Okay. You good with this now, Frank? We're good?
Yeah, it won't be on the 14th, but we'll bring it back
Okay.
to the first
Okay.
meeting that we can right
Okay.
after that.
All right.
So we need a motion, I think, right?
Okay. Commissioner Zonka, can you put that into a motion form?
Okay, I'm not an attorney, but I'll do my best.
Okay.
Okay, a motion to direct the county manager to execute or come up with RFP criteria for
To
food
lease-
services?
Lease the space, right?
Lease the space for food services at both locations.
And we will do that, Commissioner.
Okay, have a motion?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 4-1 with Commissioner Tobias and
Want to take a break?
checks. Sure. We'll take a 5-minute break, guys. We're on item J6. Commissioner Tobias, are you ready, sir? This is your item, I believe, sir.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'll be brief on this. I believe that county employees who worked during the COVID emergency and received vaccination deserve premium pay under the American Rescue Plan Act, whether they were inspectors, making sure permits were still moving smoothly, librarians who are sanitizing books so children would no longer who no longer had access to school libraries and books to read, parks workers ensuring there were safe and clean places for our citizens to exercise, natural resources employees ensuring lagoon cleanup continued even despite what was going on, or utility workers making sure our sewer lines did not back up. These are essential workers who continue to do their jobs and serve the public. Of course, to avoid any appearances of impropriety, I am excluding commissioners from eligibility in this volunteer program. Commissioner Lober, you laugh, but up north there were some commissioners that voted themselves $10,000 hazard pay on this. Yes, there's some good YouTube video. And that's the only reason I put this here, so our salary would not be affected. As we did with the CARES funds, I'm prepared to vote for other commissioners' discretionary projects moving forward so long as they're legal and practical to administer. While this may not be the project you would choose to fund, hopefully the board is willing to give the same discretion to me as I will to you. So this is the program that I discussed previous with the caveat of the vaccination. Madam Chair, this would give county manager the ability to put together the program and administer the funds with the administration cost coming out of the $2 million. This would be a one-time expense, so would not come back to the board with projects in the future. I'd be more than willing to discuss any of the specifics, but I wanted to keep it generally broad and give discretion to the county manager as well as HR to bring back an equitable and fair program.
You have my support, sir. Is that a motion?
Sure. The motion directs, Madam Chair, directs staff to draft and implement a voluntary premium pay program for board employees other than commissioners who, 1, did not receive hazard pay under the CARES Act, 2, were designated essential employee under the board resolution 2021-053, and 3, who are fully vaccinated within 30 days of the program becoming available using the ARPA funds allocated to District 3. Staff is authorized to construct the program in such a way as to maximize flexibility with these funds. That is the motion,
I will
Madam Chair.
happily second that.
I'll third it.
Commissioner Zonka?
Yes, does this exclude the constitutional offices? I think it said it in the report.
Yes, Madam Chair.
And that would be the only issue that I have, only because they're still county employees, and I know that cost would be astronomical. I don't think you'll change it as far as, details goes, and I appreciate that. However, I think if you reduce the amount, you may be able to cover the constitutional offices as well. Whether I fundamentally disagree with the whole vaccination issue, we did give discretion to our districts to expend the money, and I do respect how you choose to spend yours, because it is a legal method. And again, I don't say I agree with it. However, I would be more comfortable if all county employees, minus us, of course, would be eligible.
Yeah, Commissioner Tobias, go ahead, and then Commissioner Lober jump in. So.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just wanted to point out the fire rescue has received hazard pay, and Brevard County Sheriff's Office has received hazard pay as well. That coming from the governor, part of these and previous funds as well. So this is meant to keep in parity, but the point is well taken. This would not extend to various other constitutional offices. Those individuals certainly have the ability to do that, to come back with budget change requests to bring to us.
Did you, I'm not saying that you did or expected you to, because you probably weren't expecting this kind of question, but did you look at what, excluding the sheriffs and the department and the fire, what that cost would be for the other constitutional offices?
Madam Chair?
Oh, please, I'm
So,
interested.
sorry, to exclude, this
Because
excludes.
they received $1,000 from the governor.
Okay.
Yeah.
To exclude, so to add in the clerk of the courts, all those
Yes.
other, no, I did not. I did not. I looked at all county employees who, those have a constitutional officer who has the ability to control wages and come back to us with budget change requests. I did not do that, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lober?
I'd welcome, Madam Chair.
Yes,
I
sir.
would certainly welcome, and I would support you if you were to use your resources to fund those folks. I think
As would I.
I think you'd find out that it would be far less than an equal amount given to there are less than this approximately 1,700 employees that would receive this.
I get it. I would like to see, if it were me, you know, and I was making that decision, I'd like to see it spread fairly. Because I think that, you know, incentivizing somebody with a week's long or 2 weeks salary to get the vaccine, I mean, if people haven't got the vaccine yet, they're probably not going to get it. And I asked Frank what those numbers look like as far as the vaccination rates of the existing, our fire department even, and I think you brought it up already. It was like 27.9%. So even when we offered them money and an incentive to do it, you know, a quarter of our people on the front lines have only been vaccinated, which kind of surprises me, you know, that, or at least that they've been the only ones that have applied for the incentive. So I don't know. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. But is it legal and is it your expenditure? Yes. So I'm a little torn.
Commissioner Lober?
Well, I hope that the same standards held on a motion that I plan to make in board reports about is it legal and is it what was the terminology that you used? Is it legal and is it, there were two standards?
The second one dealt with the ability to administer the funds in a fair manner.
I appreciate
That we're
it.
not putting too much pressure
There we go.
on staff to.
So I just have one point that I want to clarify, because I seconded your motion as it was stated. I think I might have seen an earlier draft on the agenda that may have been a bit broader, but your motion is stated, I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. You're excluding only those employees who received hazard pay from the CARES Act. You're not excluding folks who might have received vaccine incentives out of CARES Act, correct? Because what I'm thinking, just as an example, is we may have someone who works in utilities or in County Commission District 2, as one of my staff members does, who's a volunteer firefighter, who I don't know whether he went forward with the vaccine incentive, which would have been somewhere between $75 and $150, but it was certainly not a four-digit sum that he ended up bringing in on account of CARES Act. And I just would hate to see someone like that kept out because of a $75 check.
You know, you guys, I guess we're trying to figure out the 2 million, and we're going to help each other out because it's what we do. But Commissioner Tobias, this is your choice. And I know we're all giving you decisions, but sir, I'm going to respect what you bring forward to it.
I just want clarity, that's all.
Yeah, so.
Madam Chair, I'm not, I understand, I think this would take care of that loophole, but that's why I'm punting it to the county manager on this one.
Okay.
You're more than welcome to
Yeah, I'm
get
not
with
trying to
him
change it.
and bring back. I certainly don't want anyone to be caught in that loophole.
That's all I'm worried about.
And as we move forward.
That's fair.
Okay, so you made a motion and a second.
Yes, ma'am.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. And I have no public comment cards, so we're going to move on to board reports. County Manager.
I have no report.
Okay. County Attorney.
No report.
Commissioner Lober.
Great, I've got a couple items. I sent out a memo earlier today, which will be included with today's meeting minutes. I'm just going to give you a very abbreviated version of the motions here. So first, and there is going to be a change to the number in the second motion here, or at least, pardon me, in part of the first motion.
Did you bring copies of them, sir? with
I
you?
apologize. If you want to call on someone else, I can go print them and grab them real quick for board reports.
Do you guys want to see them first? You wanna-
I think he emailed it to us.
Okay, let me see if I can find it.
Oh,
Oh, good.
yeah, Ms. Bentley has an extra copy if you'd like.
Good, I have a small phone. Commissioner Tobias, do you have a copy? Commissioner?
If you want, I can go
Smith.
through the whole thing instead of the abbreviated version if you prefer.
Okay, Commissioner Smith's good too. It's just me. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, so you want the abbreviated version then?
Whatever you want to do to try to get your motion passed, sir, you're
Okay,
in.
as we're kind of getting on in the hours, unless someone wants to hear the longer version, I'll give you the abbreviated version. So I wanted to move to expand the category of staff tangible goods, to make it from staff tangible goods, to rephrase it as staff and/or government and/or nonprofit tangible goods and/or services. I also want to include in the motion to increase the maximum expenditure for that pool of funds to $60,000. And it's not increasing the overall budget. It's simply allowing for redistribution among the funds that are remaining from the original $5 million. I want to also create a new category, and this is a change from the memo. I apologize. I just got more information from the budget office today on final costs for some of the programs we put in place. I want to create a new category to allow D2 CARES Act funds to be used for infrastructure, so sewer, water, road, bridge, bus shelters, internet, anything in that category for projects within D2. And here's the change. Instead of having a maximum permissible allocation of $200,000, there's actually substantially more, as I found out from budget today, based on one program coming in substantially less than I thought. So I'd like to change that to $500,000. So a maximum permissible allocation of $500,000. And again, we're not looking at raising the aggregate total from the $5 million, just allowing it to be allocated in this fashion. Also with the motion is authorization for staff to execute BCRs and/or any other administrative actions necessary to effectuate the allocations. If you want more info, I can give you on any of them.
Okay, Commissioner Lober, let me ask you a question. So this is, I know it's what we did with those funds before.
Yes,
You're
ma'am.
just wanting to expand the categories you're able to place them into, correct, sir?
Yeah, I'm not looking to have more money allocated
Right.
for purposes of having D2 have the delegation to choose what happens with it. I'm just simply looking at what's left based on the allocations
Okay.
that didn't go quite as high as I thought, in some cases substantially lower than I thought, as we ended certain programs.
Okay.
We have over $500,000 left out of the $5 million, so I'm trying to find other useful ways of making use of the funds
Okay.
that are there.
I
So this-
will agree to what you get, what you
Perfect.
do, because it's what we did. If you would, though, when you do it, just come back and tell us what you did, because that's what we all agreed to before.
Yeah,
so-
I'm totally fine with that.
Okay. Okay.
I'm up.
Okay.
Can we,
Oh, yes, I
can we get a
think he wants
second
a
on that one
motion.
first,
Second.
please?
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, you're up.
Okey dokey.
Oh, well, you're not up, but you can go ahead and go. Let's Commissioner
Okay.
Tobago next.
Logan, are we ready? All right. Yeah, that's me. At an attempt of levity, I thought with my board report tonight, I'll be a little less serious. Most people know that I'm big on jet skiing. There's a picture of me, and also most people know that I have a real problem with skin cancer. Despite the fact that I dress like this, which you can see, there's not 1 square inch of me that's showing, but I still get skin cancers because my dermatologist says it's because of all the days and hours that I spent not dressed like that. So, but then a lot of people don't have any idea what I do when I jet ski. Next. This is a track, go ahead and you watch it. Okay. This is the tracks that we took in the Okalaha River and streams off of it last week, 2 weekends ago.
Where is that?
This is right by Palatka.
Oh.
That's where we had lunch. And we're doing 55 miles an hour through these twisties, which is a real adrenaline rush. Especially when you make a tight turn and there's a log there because the tree fell.
Not a gator?
Not a gator. Well, we just run over them. It's just like hitting a bump in the road.
isn't it?
That's the end. That's 116 miles that day.
Wow.
And it was an adrenaline rush the entire time. So that's what I do. And that's my report.
All right, it's a good report. Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for my passion today in penance. I will be missing the zoning meeting on Thursday, so I apologize for my time out in the quarter, but I appreciate you keeping your calm as always.
Oh, you're wonderful. Commissioner Zonka.
I don't have any report.
I would like to say something about Mr. Tobias. Commissioner Tobias, I wasn't offended. I was entertained. And if you remember, probably 4 years ago or more, I said, Commissioner Tobias is nothing if not entertaining. And you are.
Yeah. This is true. I want to catch you guys up on the surveys I sent out to MIMS. It's 2 days, and they're supposed to have them into me by then, and I haven't had hardly any response of mailing them back to me. I've only had, I think it's like 32% return them. I do have more of those saying yes than the no's, but still, if I ran it, I've only got 22% so far of people saying they want it back in the water.
Madam Chair, the yeses, they want it kept out or they want it added back?
They want to add it back in, but how I worded the survey, as I said on the survey, 2/3 supermajority must vote yes and send this back to me for it to go back in. And I talked to a couple people, and they told me they just assumed if it's a no, they didn't have to mail it back in. So I don't know, but I'd like to extend the time for about another 4 weeks in all fairness, just to give people an opportunity to mail it back to see if they want it in. Because I know no matter what I do with this, I'm not going to win with people not being okay with it. But I'm figuring if they don't mail it back in, either it's a no or they really don't want it in their water or care about it. So I want to give every opportunity I can for the votes to come in. I'm kind of surprised because the Fluoride Association has spent tens of thousands of dollars up there. There's big, huge campaign billboards. They have been sending texts out to everybody's texts. I know because I'm getting calls because they're thinking I gave out their cell phone numbers and I didn't. They're getting mailings. So there's been a big campaign for such a little response. So I'm going to extend it for a little bit longer and see if more people will send it in so we get some kind of clear definition. But as of right now, I don't see a lot of people really excited about getting the fluoride back in, but I will keep you guys posted.
Works for me.
Good?
Yep. Good.
Okay.
You be the boss.
Well, on that, I will call this meeting adjourned.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.